simple fact of the matter is he did send ethnically intimidating statements. When this law was drafted, there were problems with it. It wasn't too broad. Was it impinging on free speech? And clearly it's a good law. It's meant to ensure that we don't have hate crimes. In this particular incident, the defendant is an African American, which makes it a little bit interesting. But I think the simple fact of the matter is that it sounds like there was intent to ethnically intimidate. He said it racially tinged statements towards 5 other African Americans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think personally the issue of him being an African American is relevant at all. The special education part, I don't know. That'll be that's something that the lawyers in the matter will have to figure out a little bit more.
So he's a black kid. He uses the N-word, writes it on the wall to intimidate some other black kids, and suddenly he could go to jail for 2 years.
You know, you're in a fine line there. The way you started it, he's a black kid, yes. You write the N-word on the wall, yes. If it stopped right there, if there's nothing else, then that's probably a free speech issue. But your next statement was along the lines of he uses it to intimidate other people. That right there, it's the fine line between free speech and criminal intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he crossed it for whatever reason, and it sounds like it had, unfortunately, the desired effect because it blew up throughout the high school with notes and other incidents. And it just sounds like he danced the First Amendment line for a minute and then crossed it when it started intimidating other people.
Right there in Birmingham, Michigan, if you can believe that. Now,
Yeah,
curious
exactly.
to know what you think, too, of this. There's been a lot of speculation about the so-called perp walk that this head of the IMF bank went through, the guy who was expected to be in line to be president of France, accused of raping a woman in a New York hotel. And in France, they're outraged that he may be innocent, yet he was forced to go in front of the cameras in the courtroom with the handcuffs and the whole 9 yards. Is it unfortunate that our system allows people to be shown in the media as a criminal when they might not be guilty?
Gosh, I got a whole lot of answers to that. One based on law enforcement, one based on a defense attorney. But I think the simplest answer is no, it's not unfortunate because thankfully all of this is public information. Could you imagine the outcry if we didn't know about this until charges were dismissed? And somehow or another we find out that the head of the IMF way back in May of 11 was charged with sexual assault, and here we are sometime in 12, and nobody knew about it. I think just the opposite. I think and we hear this more and more. We want openness. We want to be able to see what's going on and everything. I think we tend to take it too far sometimes. But in a situation like this, it's a serious public matter. It's in the public eye. If you don't want to do the perp walk, don't get in trouble. I think it's a good thing that we're able to see this. From a defense attorney standpoint, you brace your client for it. There's going to be a lot of press here. I think you saw. I watched it. The gentleman was there's no emotion. There's no nothing. This is a step in the process. It probably doesn't affect him a whole lot. It's more for us as a society. But like I said, I think it's a good thing.
He has resigned his position, though he maintains that he's not guilty, and there are a couple of different defenses that we've heard floated around. He wasn't there at the time, and then the other one might be that it was consensual. It's going to be difficult, is it not, to know exactly what happened in that hotel room? I heard yesterday they were taking out pieces of the carpet.
Yeah, it'll be significantly difficult, and consent is always an issue, and that's the problem with, well, maybe problem's too harsh a word, but that's the issue that arises in an alleged sexual assault is the victim the victim gets put under a serious microscope because what if there was consent? So you really the system, there are laws in place to protect victims in situations like this, but at the same time, as a defense attorney, it's your job to make sure that this wasn't consensual, and that's where she really gets put under a microscope, and that bleeds into an even bigger societal issue that there are studies that's why some rape victims don't come forward because they just can't handle it. And it's not necessarily that the attorneys involved are bad people. They're what if. Every now and then there is an alleged sexual assault that turns out to not be true. So you got to do that digging, but it's going to be a tough process for all involved.
What would she have to gain by saying that? That's what if you're a conspiracy theorist, you think there's some political motivation going on here, that maybe she's going to get a payoff down the road. Maybe it happened as she said, and then you start to see other people come out of the woodwork and say it happened in Mexico, and there was a woman on his staff who was uncomfortable. And it's such a fuzzy area, and I guess I don't know if we'll ever know the truth about what happened, but we know for sure he's at Rikers Island. We know for sure he's resigned his position, and we know for sure it's a very unpleasant situation indeed. Brian Morley shedding a little light on it for us. He was a law enforcement officer in Flint and now an attorney with Fraser, Trebilcock, Davis, and Dunlap. We're going to talk with Linda Solomon, the celebrity photojournalist, in a couple of minutes. Apparently, there is a lot of money at stake for the first photographer who can get a nice photo of Arnold Schwarzenegger's love child, who's said to look a lot like him, from what we hear. And Linda Solomon's sister works for the Today Show. Linda Solomon has photographed many celebrities. We'll talk about that in 3 little minutes. It's Michael Patrick Shields live from the American Metal Roof studio on Michigan's Morning Show.